Hey guys, Apox Fox here. There are a few things I'm looking for when I play a new open world game, like is it fun to explore, are there reasons to step off the beaten path, or do I always find myself fast traveling in order to avoid long journeys? After playing Horizon Zero Dawn, I can safely say that this game checks all those boxes. When I'm playing a game to review on my channel, I usually find myself sticking to the main objective in order to finish it on time. But with Horizon, I just couldn't bring myself to progress through the story because I fell in love with getting deeply lost in its incredibly dense and reactive open world. Almost to a fault even, with how exploration completely overshadowed the story that was trying to be told. Horizon is another one of those games that I've been trying to get around to playing for years, but somehow never really gave a chance until now. After 60 hours of playing, I wouldn't change a thing. Especially with the Horizon sequel coming out in less than a month, it feels like the perfect time to look back on where it all began. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy my review for Horizon Zero Dawn. In Horizon, you play as Aloy, an outcast from society who deeply wants to fit in, but is continually sabotaged by the secrets of her past. Aloy is easily the strongest part of Horizon's storyline. Learning her quirks and mysterious background is one of the biggest reasons why I started to fall in love with this game in the first place. After finishing Horizon, I can safely say that Aloy has found her place within the Hall of Fame of great video game characters, right between Link and Master Chief. While Horizon takes place in a world very different from our own, Aloy's relatability makes her shine. Within the first hour of playing, I already felt emotionally invested in her character. There were even some moments that reminded me of my own childhood, and it made it very easy to accept Aloy and stay rooting for her throughout the rest of the game. The other great strength of Horizon's storytelling is its exceptionally good world building. While there are definitely a lot of abstract ideas that make this world feel very foreign, even before the tutorial sections, you feel like you can piece together how society has changed over the years. Oh yeah, I totally forgot to mention that Horizon takes place in the 31st century, which is fascinating because Horizon feels like it takes place on a whole different planet. Society has pretty much reset itself and now dinosaurs are back, except this time they're robots. It's a little bit confusing, but once you see how the robo-dinos interact with each other and the world around them, they really just feel like wild animals. Speaking of which, Horizon puts a huge focus on hunting and gathering. In fact, I'd say it's probably the main gameplay mechanic. In order to do pretty much anything in this game, you need to collect resources first. Whether that means heading to the hunting grounds and taking out a group of striders for arrow parts, or wandering around some dense fields foraging healing plants. Every aspect of this game revolves around the idea of living off the land. This was what initially got me hooked on this game. There's a sort of cycle to collecting resources and then using them against tough enemies or towards upgrading your equipment. This also means that you might be going up against a pack of monsters and you run out of arrows, or the very useful traps you unlock in this game. This actually happens a lot, but luckily it's super easy to craft these items with the click of like 2 buttons, plus you can usually gather the necessary resources from the enemies you're fighting, so you don't have to run all the way back to the hunting grounds every time something like this happens. Hunting and gathering also makes you a lot more conscious of how you use your weapons, especially because there's a limit to the amount of them you can build at once. For example, you can only have 20 arrows at once at the beginning of the game, and you will quickly learn that you need to make every shot count. It's also probably good to mention that every robot has a weak spot, meaning if you hit these spots directly, you can deal a ton of critical damage. If you run out of ammo, it isn't the end of the world, you can always resort to melee combat, but unless you're performing a sneak attack, melee combat is nowhere near as strong as ranged combat, which I think is a really good trade-off actually. As far as difficulty goes, you do have an option to choose anywhere between easy mode and ultra hard mode. I spent most of the game on normal mode, which still felt pretty difficult when I was learning all the mechanics, but it was nice knowing I could change the difficulty anytime if I needed to. I want to talk a little bit more about the enemy design because it's definitely one of the more magical parts of this game. As I mentioned before, all these robots are a mix between dinosaurs and animals you find out in the wild, and it really seems like they all have a purpose rather than just being there as enemies. You'll find some of them hunting other robot prey. Some aren't even hostile at all, they'll just run away if you come near them. Then you also have these massive ones that tower over you and just roam around the city. Half the fun is learning whether or not these beasts are going to try to kill you. You can even ride some of them like horses to get around faster. All of this combined had me hooked on Horizon's open world, and it was very hard for me to stop and focus on any objective I had. The The more I talk about this game, the more I notice all the small details I love about it, but that doesn't mean Horizon is without its faults. In fact, the open world is so good that the boring parts of this game really stick out like a sore thumb. I keep saying that I spent so much time exploring that I barely had time for the main story, and a lot of that is due to the story just being a lot weaker. Horizon has a really strong start and you will get invested really fast, but it feels like when the world opens up, the story starts to drag a lot. 90% of the dialogue is really cheesy, and there's so much exposition that it's so easy to space out and forget everything you just heard. Luckily, they always give the option to end the conversation early, but if you pick that option every time, you start to realize that maybe the dialogue just isn't that great. I liked the beginning and ending of the game, but I feel like the middle section was kind of an afterthought. On the bright side though, Aloy stays pretty interesting all throughout the game, and I guess that's all that matters. All in all though, Horizon was a really great game. I think it easily has one of the best open worlds we've seen in the last decade, and although this story doesn't exactly sit well with me, the combat and exploration would probably convince me to have a second playthrough, and I will definitely be checking out the sequel next month. So what are your thoughts on Horizon? Are you excited for Forbidden West? Let me know down in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It really helps me out and I'm excited to show you what I have in store in the coming weeks. Keep on gaming to the fullest and I'll see you next time. Peace.